Mr. President, given the recent news about Secretary Paulson's execution of the TARP program, I firmly believe action is required by Congress. This morning I introduced S3683. That's legislation that would do two things, Mr. President. It would freeze any of the amount of money of the first $350 billion that has not already been expended. And secondly, it would change the process by which we would access, or Secretary Paulson would access, the second $350 billion. When Secretary Paulson first came to the Senate and explained his plan it was on a conference call. I happened to be on that conference call. It was September the 19th. At that time, he was talking about the crisis that is upon us now. We have to do something. We have to do something big. It's got to be $700 billion. It has to be done right now. The only way to do it is to buy troubled assets. And at that time, I asked some questions. One question was, well, if there are assets that are going to be bought, what is the criteria that will be used to determine which assets should be bought? And there was not an answer to that question. Second question was, which institutions that are holding these assets would be the ones who would be eligible for this buyout? And there were no answers to that either. Well, that was on a Friday, and then as the next few days went by, we had several conversations. I didn't have any personal conversations with him except in one conference lunch. And that is this the only way to do it? Yes, it's going to have to be buying out troubled assets. And still the answers were not there to those questions. Now, in my statement opposing, I voted against the Paulson plan last month. In my statement opposing it, I laid out three primary reasons why I voted no. The first is that I wasn't convinced that the asset purchase program was the right way to do this. Apparently, he didn't think so either, because that's not what he did. The second is that it would lead to increased lobbying for handouts and bailouts by any industry facing financial trouble. Now we're seeing that. We're seeing the auto industry coming in, others, some insurance companies and others coming in. It's kind of a new way of life. If you're not successful, don't worry about it, because you have the federal government is there to help you. And the third were that we were handing over, as I read it, and I don't blame Secretary Paulson for this, because I suppose if this is what he wanted, somebody else was willing to put it together. He was not the one, I suppose, who drafted it. But it gave one person, in this case, Secretary Paulson, the sole authority over $700 billion. Now, I have a hard time with big numbers, really putting them in a perspective that is understandable. But it's my understanding that there are 139 million families in America that file tax returns. If you do your math, this would be $5,000 per family. Now, we're talking about any family out there that files tax returns. This is a huge thing. So it does require extraordinary thought in addressing it. Well, as I stated at the time, that my vote was against the Paulson plan, not against taking action to provide necessary confidence in financial markets. I do know that, I agree that there is a problem out there. I'm just not convinced that this is the way to address it. The critics, we critics, I should say, were right. On October 14th, in a significant shift, Treasury outlined a plan to directly purchase equity stakes in major financial institutions. The Wall Street Journal noted that, and I'm quoting now, critics say Treasury should have formulated a comprehensive plan earlier in the crisis. This past week, Secretary Paulson announced that he has completed a remarkable about-face, as summarized by the November 13th Investors Business Daily, front-page headline, which read, "In major reversal, Treasury won't buy bad mortgage debt." This is a complete reversal. Why did Paulson reverse course? Last Thursday's Los Angeles Times provides the answer. Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson's decision to abandon plans to buy troubled bank assets shows that he has come to two conclusions about what was once the chief focus of the government's $700 billion bailout. The first is that it wouldn't work. Well, that's kind of the full circle. This is what we thought at the time, and this is where we are today. I know many of you have serious concerns about how Secretary Paulson has executed the financial rescue program, and I share those with you. Congress completely abdicated its responsibility by signing a truly blank check. If you look at this and if you read it, there's nothing in there that says you have to do that. Never before in the history of America has anyone, elected or in this case unelected, been given a blank check or a check in the amount of $700 billion to do with as he wishes. It's never happened before. It's unprecedented. But that's exactly what happened. Now we're faced with something that we have we're in a lame duck session. We can do something about resolving this problem now, and that is supporting and passing the legislation that I introduced this morning. It is officially introduced. I believe I'd requested it be sent to the Senate Bank Committee. I'm sure there are several there who want to resolve this problem before we recess. My concern is this. The way it's set up by law, there are $350 billion already out there. He's been spending that. I frankly don't know how much is already spent. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago that said all but $60 billion has been spent. That may be true. It may not be true. I have no way of knowing. That alone is enough reason for it to have concern that a senior member of the United States Senate doesn't even know how much of the taxpayers' money have been spent or what percentage of the $350 billion. Now, you have a second $350 billion to make up the $700 billion that would come, but it's rather nebulous. It's rather vague as to how that would be put into the hands of Secretary Paulson. My interpretation is that he would indicate, yes, we do need to have the second $350 billion, and if there was not a resolution to stop that, to preclude that from happening, then he would be able to do that. Now, my concern is this, that we'll stall around and do nothing, then we'll adjourn and go back and not come back until January, and that would give him the opportunity of stating his initiation, what he wants to do, and then having 15 days go by when we're not even in session. So I think the only way to do this is to do this the way we are planning to do it now, and that is to bite the bullet and take, I know it's difficult. It's difficult for members of any body, and particularly the United States Senate. This thing, as I recall, passed by 75 to 24. Those of us who are among the 24 who voted against it, we're fine in terms of doing something like this. But at least a third of those who voted for it would have to say, well, he didn't do what he said he'd do. He didn't buy the troubled assets. Therefore, that gives me a reason to change. And I just can't help but think that at least half or even more of those who voted for this would find themselves in that position. So when we look at where we are today and see that there is something that can be done, I think it's necessary that we go ahead and do it. The Senate Finance, one of the things that's going on now, and this bothers me a little bit, and that is that there is an argument going on right now between some of the committees, the Finance Committee, the Banking Committee, as to who has jurisdiction. Then there's a debate as to whether or not a special Inspector General should be appointed, and they've talked about some names, but if they do that, it would probably not be, confirmation wouldn't take place for another couple of months. By that time, all the money's gone. So we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs, doing nothing, and our last shot to do something is to do it while we're here. This session, this lame duck session, I suspect, is only going to last 3 or 4 days. So we have that length of time to stop this from happening. So if the American people are concerned about this, concerned as I am and as many members of this body are, that this was done without the consideration it should have had, that this amount of money, $700 billion, is out there right now in the hands of one person to do with as he wishes, that is not good government, and it needs to be stopped. We can stop it by the passage of the legislation that I introduced this morning. Again, it'll do only two things. It will preclude and freeze any further expenditure by the Secretary of Treasury, and secondly, it would preclude the second $350 billion from coming up for consideration. In other words, that would stay in the Treasury. So I think this is the only chance that we've got to get it done. We better do it now, or it's going to be too late. We'll be out of here, and it'll be history by the time we come back in January. With that happy note, Mr. President, I observe the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.